everybody. We're thrilled that you come out to this special advanced screening of Kin. We have the directors, Jonathan and Josh Baker, here with us. These are two brilliant Aussies. Am I using that right? Aussies? They're doing a very special Q&A with us, and after this is over, they're going to do an exclusive autograph session, and they have specific posters that were created for this press tour only. Can't get them anywhere else. If you do, you're going to pay a lot of money. So just be sure you get them here. And if anyone who is sitting next to you and went to the bathroom, hope you can text them and tell them to come back. And we'll get this.
You don't necessarily need the autograph, but you should take the poster. It's badass.
Well, guys, I'm kind of in a blur right now. I was not expecting Michael B. Jordan. So everyone in the audience, please keep that a secret.
Yeah, that's something that we've kept a little secret for about 2 years now, and we're shocked it's not all over the internet. So, you know, well, so far everyone's been really respectful, and we appreciate that. So help us keep it until opening weekend. Yeah, help us keep it.
Just hack the internet tonight. Guys, again, I don't know where to start, but I guess the first thing is you come from a background in advertising. Am I too loud for this audience? No. Okay. You come from a background in advertising, and obviously you have a passion for movies and things you grew up with. So I spotted some things that I might have noticed you've grown up with. Would you like care to elaborate?
Yeah, drop a few. Yeah,
okay.
What'd you notice?
Is the Sulaco County? Sulaco, is that real? Is that a real county?
Do you know what Sulaco is?
Aliens.
It's the drop ship. It's the drop ship. Well, yeah, it's the ship from Aliens. Yeah.
The shootout in the police station, obviously Terminator.
Sure. If you want, or you know, there's a bunch of other references of that. Assault on Precinct 13,
okay.
And a bunch of things. But yeah, sure.
Naming Dennis Quaid's last name Selinsky, is that a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids reference?
It's not. That's a first. Wow, I like that. We grew up with that. We grew up with that. There's a few others. There's Easter eggs the whole way through the movie. Mostly 80s films. The street they live on is Reese Street, nice. Which is from Terminator, and Reese's Pieces, which is E.T. The farm is Freeman Farms, which is from Flight of the Navigator. There's the scrapyard is called Codan's Scrap and Tow, which is the Codan Armada from Flight of the Navigator. No, the Last Starfighter. My bad.
Okay.
There's little Easter eggs.
Little gotcha. So this is
silly
things you're just dying to throw in there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's our first movie. You got to pepper it with things.
Wow. Absolutely. A lot of times filmmakers, you know, not knocking this. I love The Book of Life, but Jorge Gutierrez threw everything that he grew up with, songs, you know, movies, things like that. So it's great that you put it in there, but it was kind of restrained. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of things in there that is our tastes. I mean, the movie really sums up all of our different sort of styles of genres of films that we love. From road trip stuff to coming of age to crime drama and family drama. We've got sci-fi in there. It's a selfish endeavor to kind of pack it all into your first film and just, you know, it's stuff that we wanted to have our first gunfight and shoot that, you know. Spielberg said he didn't feel like a director until he shot his first gunfight, so.
Oh, badass, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, there's lots of things in there.
Quick question, the owl, was that the same owl from Bagman?
It wasn't the same owl. We shot this one in Toronto, and the other one was in New York. But same breed of owl. It was less of a diva than the New York owl. That one flew up into a tree and wouldn't come back. This one was actually really well behaved, but we wanted to have a slight nod to the short film. But also, this is our version of the Sword and the Stone fable about, you know, some kind of powerful weapon that only a boy can wield. And in the Disney cartoon, they had an owl, so we had to put one in.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't put that together. But, you know, it's funny that there's a lot of sly things, and maybe you can talk to the audience about taking what Bagman was. If you guys haven't seen Bagman, it's a 14-minute short film that was the basis for this film. So maybe tell a little bit about the process of going from the short to the feature.
Yeah, we, as you mentioned, we were doing advertising, directing ads and stuff for a good 15 years together. We came to the States in 2007 to New York. We did a decade out there in New York, and just did a bunch of Nike stuff, you know, Powerade, Beats by Dre, a bunch of different commercials. And after working on 30-second formats, 60-second formats, it gets a little old. Yeah, you crave longer stories and slower stories and all that type of stuff. So Bagman for us was just a little side project that we could focus on, put our all into, use favors from people, crew, people that we'd used before in New York, and maybe mash up a few different tones, like start it like it feels like a Sundance short, and then towards the end, takes a real drastic turn and does some different sci-fi stuff that you didn't see coming. And having seen Kin, you pretty much know where it's going now, so sorry to ruin that for you. But there is a giant, silly sort of ray gun, and we like the idea of taking something that absolutely doesn't fit in modern society and just sort of making it all work harmoniously.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was very interesting. It felt like quicksand, every bit of this movie, and you have James Franco pursuing the two brothers. You have.
How good was he though?
He was fantastic.
I mean, I love seeing that dude play charismatic, super intimidating characters, and you don't know whether to giggle or to pull back in your seat. And it's actually funny watching it with different audiences. Some people laugh and some people are wide-eyed and a little scared. So it's kind of cool.
Well, the movie, it was pulse pounding, it was intimidating, and what kind of happened along the way? What elements did you have to put in to maybe make it more intense, or did you pull back at all?
I think it was always about trying to keep the tension up. We had a lot of discussion, us, the producers and the writer, about tension and how to keep that going and tightening the noose, which is a saying that came up quite a bit. The tricky thing is really just not allowing the sci-fi genre elements to get too big for their own boots. Honestly, we didn't want to tell a story that competes with a Marvel movie. This is kind of the anti-blockbuster in many ways. It's very character-driven. It's where they go glossy, we go gritty, and we lower the bar. They raise it. We flip one car and we make you care about it. Transformers flips 1,000 cars, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So it's accurate. He's not wrong. So there's something about like retaining a level of intimacy to storytelling that we just love, and some people it's not their taste. It's our taste, but sometimes it gets a little slow and intimate, and you have these quiet moments like The Owl, for instance. There's not many movies that would keep that in, but that was a moment that we just we wanted to push.
Well, I imagine that being in the advertising industry, everything you shoot is purposeful, and you don't want to have any wasted scene. And the movie moved pretty swiftly, so what was your experience trying to stretch a scene longer than the usual 30 to 60 seconds?
Well, it became a pacing question in the edit of just finding out how long do you want your movie to be, at what points do people start feeling uncomfortable, like this is just taking too long. And there's some of those in there. I mean, this movie isn't for everybody, but it has both of those things. There's a duality to this film. It's fast-paced, and there's sci-fi that feels a little slicker, but then it's got slower stuff that's intimate and more emotional, and we really tried to have both in the film. Hope that answers it.
Totally. In a way, it kind of feels like, I think for once, the description of a movie actually fits the movie. It says, with a sci-fi twist. And even maybe that's overselling it. And I think that the great thing is it was a character-driven story with, a layer of sci-fi behind it. In a way, it kind of felt like a sci-fi drive, in a way.
Yeah, that's a compliment.
That's cool, man.
You're still tripping off it, aren't you?
Totally.
Okay.
Michael B. Jordan, people. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted people to, just wonder how the hell we got him, and, they can't afford that guy. How did that happen? It shouldn't work, but it really, really does. There's also something really important about having a black teenager in a film that's kind of a Hollywood sci-fi, and you don't see that very often. And it's interesting to us, but it's also timely and about time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, seriously, put your hands together. Yeah, it's important to us that it's not just about black event films and Tyler Perry movies and gang films that deserve young 14-year-old black leads. What about regular films? Mm-hmm. So that's this. Yeah. Wait, I was one more thought.
No, you go.
Sorry. I was just going to say with Michael, it was a really powerful image for us, for him to, at the end of this film, to look into the eyes of someone 14 years his senior, and he's like a powerful soldier, and that mask to come off, and for him to kind of feel like he has some belonging, because in this film he's a bit of an outsider. He's never really had that sense of grounded belonging, and we just wanted to put that up on a big screen and have the character that you've fallen in love with be able to look at someone who's his brother from a different dimension and see what he's destined to become. You know, one day.
Well, I like Myles Truitt in the role. I mean, fantastic. Not many 14-year-olds are able to carry the weight, you know.
That's his first movie, just like us. That's his first movie. He did a thing called The New Edition Story on BET. He played the young Ronnie DeVoe from Belvede DeVoe. And he was great, but that hadn't come out when we cast him, so literally he had nothing, no evidence. Yeah, we didn't have any proof other than the fact that he came in and crushed his session for us and had this, exactly what we're after, someone that was more insular, like the character, someone that could just stand there and you really wanted to engage with him just due to his eyes. He had a really great cinematic face, and he wasn't being all energetic and singing and dancing for us. That's not the character, and a lot of kids came in and were like that. A lot of kids came in, they were too slick, they were too cool, not this character. So it was very specific, and Myles came in as the very last person out of 250, 300 kids, and we thought we knew which direction we were going, and I have to admit, I was maybe slightly disappointed with the amount of kids that we had on our list, and then he came in and we all were dead sure that was the kid.
That's fantastic, because you hear stories about how the actor informs the story and things change, you know, it can manifest something different on the screen. But you know who I was a big fan of seeing Jack Reynor, because he played an older brother in Sing Street.
Mm-hmm. And really good one.
And ever since I saw that, I'm like, Jack Raynor's got to be in more movies. So thank you guys for giving him a bigger canvas.
Yeah, look, this movie needed a level of indie spirit to it, and for every hologram and laser and alien tech scene that we had, which is fun and cool and awesome, but we needed an actor that could really lead the brother dynamic with an indie spirit, and Jack he's an Irish kid. That's an American accent he put on. I don't know if you guys were convinced or not, but we thought it was pretty good for an Irishman. And he's done some really great movies, from Sing Street to he did a film called Glassland, which I advise everyone check out. He did a Lenny Abramson film called What Richard Did, which is dark and really great. He's a real character actor, and to sort of ground that brother dynamic with a really, really experienced actor and then a first timer was where we wanted to start it. And he's treading a very fine line in the film, as is Franco in a way, where, by the end of the film, you want him to be redeemable, and fingers crossed he is. But he starts off a bit of a dirtbag, and the audience is not with him. And they're with the kid, and he's taking the kid down a really bad path. And we're basically putting things in front of the kid that he's potentially has to choose who he wants to be in life. And it's on purpose that he's a 14-year-old, he's come from being a kid, he's becoming a man, and he has to choose his own path.
Well, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and I think this is, I don't know if this comes from your advertising background where you're trying to tell a story without telling it, but my favorite part of the movie is the part where Eli's doing donuts.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
And you have that aerial shot, and it's, I guess, the imagery that his life is now revolving around his brother.
Yeah,
so
man.
Was that intentional? Or?
You're very on it. It was intentional. There was also a top-down viewpoint that we wanted to repeat, which you probably saw about 4 times in the film, maybe 5, which kind of just represented there's always someone watching him, someone with their eyes on him, and he doesn't know it, and specifically from above, representing Michael's character at the end. And the opening shot of the movie is a one-way sign that's fallen over, and it's actually pointing up.
Oh, no way. See, a reason to see it again. All
yeah,
this layered subtext.
There's a lot of stuff in there that when you see it for a second time, you'll be seeing new things. It's kind of the way it was set up.
Well, fantastic. So I'm going to throw it out to the audience. I'm sure you guys have some questions. Does anybody want to go first? Questions for the Bakers?
What you got, bro? Dude, you're up front. Let's do it. Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah. What does he mean by that there's a war on the screen?
Oh, that's a great question, man. John, that's open to your interpretation. We have a reading of that, and that is that just like
What was the question?
Sorry, his question was, what did Michael B. Jordan at the end, once the mask came up, what did he mean by our world is at war? He mentioned a war. We just saw it as, in our minds, Eli represents the next line in a lineage on another world, and he might be royalty, he might be important. A key to something, perhaps, and he needed to be hidden away, just like a Superman character, just like Moses in the Bible, hidden in another world, in another place, so that he can be protected. And in our minds, if you watch it again, there's two different armor types in the factory at the beginning when he stumbles upon the dead bodies. There is the cleaners, which we refer to. The cleaners are these two that track him down. Ultimately, Michael B. Jordan is one from that group, and then there is another group there with very pointy, geometric shaped armor, and it's very fleeting, but you can pick it up. And those guys found out where he was, came in to assassinate this kid, and they were cut off by the cleaners, who ultimately were there to protect him, even though we think they're the biggest villain in the whole film. So yeah, watch it again, check it out.
Fantastic.
How long do we have
You,
to
ma'am?
wait for the sequel?
Man, that depends on you, dude. Yeah, that's
See it 12 times.
like honestly, this is a small movie. It's a small movie. It's got big ideas, it's got big visuals, but it's a small movie, and we're. Yeah, I mean, we've got ideas, and we pretty sure we know where it's going, but it really depends on dollars, to be honest. I mean, if people want it, they'll go and see it. If they don't want it, we'll never get to make it.
You, ma'am?
My question is basically the same thing as that. I would like to know what eventually happened to the two brothers, after the older brother finished his time in prison, and what happened to the younger brother, and what happened to the girl that came back. So I think you should do a part 2.
They're all great questions. Let's make that.
If you own a studio, these guys might like to talk to you.
It was a great sci-fi show. I really liked it. This is a pun or a play on words, but is the sequel to Kin
Next of Kin? Ooh, yes, perhaps. I got you. We've had many a conversation about that. Go for it, man.
As a moviegoer, I really enjoyed how you couldn't guess what was going to happen next.
That's
You
good,
did a
man.
great job of taking the suspense all the way to the end. And I just want to say I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Oh man, that's an honor. Thank you.
Okay, guy in the gray shirt, or when you're done, little guy, pass it to the guy in the gray shirt.
Me and my brothers want to be directors and want to make movies.
Yes.
My brother has a question that he wants to tell you.
We're all ears.
How old were y'all when y'all decided to make y'all's first short film or just little film together?
Look, we're really late to the short film game. We made stuff when we were 17 and we could get our hands on a camera in high school and stuff, but really our proper short films were only in the last 7 years or something. We came to the game late and we should have started a lot earlier. We're sneaky old as well. You've got no excuse, man. Like, this is a world where you can pick up your phone and make stuff. Like, we were coming up when shooting 35mm film was the thing to do. And, we've gone through the evolution of film. We've shot 16mm, we've shot 35, then switched to digital. So it was a lot harder back then to sort of make a lot of things happen for yourself. Whereas now, with 5Ds and phones and all that, and not Vimeo. not just cameras, but the forum to play this stuff and get it seen. I mean, forget YouTube. That's around, but there's Vimeo, there's Dust, there's all these places that put up and glorify short films, and specifically sci-fi short films, if that's what you're interested in. So there's an audience for that stuff, and what we generally tell people is, Hollywood's watching. They're so hungry for material. Every producer out there is watching that stuff, and if it's good, you'll get a call. Yeah, super encouraging.
Gentleman with the hand up in the gray shirt.
Maybe?
Thank you.
So I really enjoyed the movie. My question is that what inspired y'all to use Mogwai for the soundtrack?
Great question, man.
And how did y'all get them to play it? Because I'm such a big fan of
You're a fan?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we were fans. They're one of our favorite bands. For those that don't know, Mogwai is a Scottish band, probably 20 years old maybe, sort of postmodern rock band. Really beautiful score-like music. And we had a playlist that we put together when we were writing the screenplay with Daniel Casey, the actual writer of this. And we gave him to listen to, and it was a tonal sort of place to come from. And a lot of the tracks on that playlist were from Mogwai. And we were represented, and still are, by the agency WME, who represent Mogwai, the band. And every time we had a music conversation, we would say, you know, someone like Mogwai. And they were like, well, why don't we just ask Mogwai? And we learned very quickly that if you ask, you might get. And so we asked and we got. Thank you, man. But let me just say real quick, the biggest gift for us, though, is on the same day as release, August 31st, there's going to be a full studio album by Mogwai called Kin. And they've taken cues from the film that were perhaps 30 seconds long, and they made them like 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes long. And so it's a 10-track album. It's a 9-track Mogwai album that is going to be, they've had 22 albums or something. We get to be a part of their albums, and it's really good. It's one of our favorite Mogwai albums. I think they agree with us. So it's kind of taking their emotional piano stuff and their really hardcore droney guitar stuff and blending it all together, as you heard in here. And the tracks are really great, man. It's a start to finish. It's a really solid album, beautiful album, and it comes out on vinyl, special edition, red vinyl. I advise you to look it up.
Fantastic. Sir, you have the mic. Do you want to ask a question? Because the woman, once you're done, pass it to the woman with the glasses on her head.
Oh, absolutely. Hi, I'm also a young filmmaker like them as well.
Cool, man.
And I just kind of wanted to ask, what was any tips for keeping the pace like that your movie has? Because I personally thought that it was really well paced, and there wasn't really any dull moments, or if it was dragged out a little long, it was on purpose.
Yeah, I love your aesthetic, man, because I don't think everybody in the world agrees with you, but we do.
Yeah.
Pace is actually one of the biggest things that takes the longest in the edit. One thing we've learned is that try not to be, as a filmmaker, try not to be too insular with your thoughts, because advice from other people, showing people, obviously on this scale of work, producers that are there as your partners and giving comments, giving their thoughts, it's not their movie at the end of the day, but they have a valid perspective. And so just take into consideration notes, try things in the edit, you know, cut things out. If it feels too long to some people and they're getting bored, try a, compressed version. One interesting thing we heard, I think it was Danny Boyle said it, the director, to take your favorite scene that you shot and throw it in the trash. And the reason for that is because you put too much emphasis on it, there's too much emotion on it, there's too much ego on it, there's everything, and it probably doesn't belong in the movie. Which is really an interesting concept. You probably love it because of something that you remember happened on set, or you feel like the shot was really beautiful, but it may not work in the film for a bunch of different reasons. And interestingly enough, my favorite scene, if you had have asked me after we shot, is not in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
it sucks, man. Might be on the DVD. It'll be on the Blu-ray.
Please, Miss, you're up.
Well, my question is actually a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
To which character do you relate to the most in the film?
It's a very good question. Josh just got out of prison, everybody. Probably Zoe. Probably Millie. She was a really difficult one to get right, and I think we were very lucky to get Zoë Kravitz, who is incredibly warm and brings a sense of sophisticated cool that you cannot manufacture. People try and they fail. She warms up the movie in a really interesting way, and I think every actor who plays against her in the film is better because of it. What's your answer, John? I think, you know, there's a lot of our childhood that we put into Eli. The opening 10 minutes of him riding his BMX around Detroit, that's how we grew up, you know, just rolling around, exploring abandoned spaces, and coming home after dinner. So, yep.
Hi. Oh.
Yeah, you.
Oh,
Go for it.
Hi. My name is Karen.
Hey, Karen.
And so I think it was interesting on the adoption aspect of it, and I felt having a connection to adoption that you've done that really well.
Oh, thank you.
I like that you kind of showed the stories of the characters, but also connecting both the original and, you know, and respecting both, appreciating the safe haven that he had and he needed. And I like how you brought it at the end to find out why he was where he was.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I think representation on film is super important. Obviously, we talked about young black teens that may not see themselves in movies like this very often. But also, we wanted that brother dynamic to be as opposite a place to begin as possible. So Eli seeing his brother after a long time inside, and he gets out, they don't know each other, they start from a place of complete left and right, and bringing them together at the end of the film makes it that much more powerful.
I think I saw a hand going up, sir, with the white shirt. Or?
Okay. I wanted to ask you, I noticed in the scene where he walks down to his mother's grave and he puts a stone on the gravestone. Can you tell me how that came about?
That's really interesting. It was a last-minute addition when we were in Detroit, which was after everything in the movie. We did 4 days, maybe 5 days in Detroit. And what a wonderful location that was. I mean,
well, that's a Jewish tradition.
Yeah, right. Well, if you, I hear you. If you look closely, I believe it was a flower, a daffodil. But yeah, we just wanted to represent him thinking about his mother, especially after getting into a fight at school of someone obviously bringing her up, her death up, maybe the fact that he's adopted up, and he got into a fight, got suspended. I think through the entire filming process, you're trying to look for these ways of accentuating certain moments and making things clearer for the audience. And so there was this mother that wasn't around, and her photos in frames in the house and all of that type of stuff. They talk about her, and she's got a presence in the film. But there was something about the beginning of the film setting it up and actually seeing a heartbreaking moment of him visiting his mother that was important to us. And so when we were in Detroit, we just threw it out there to the producer, find us a cool graveyard that we can shoot in. And they got us back one, and in the background is one of the most famous, like the Packard plant, which is one of the most famous ruins in Detroit. And it just so happened that it just was perfect, this dichotomy between that background of things falling apart, the death of an industry and the death of his mother. Exactly. So, I don't know, it was one of those moments that we're really happy with, and it only had to be in there for 2 shots, but I think it helps.
Sir with the microphone, then we'll go to the blue shirt and then the red shirt.
That's good. So, one thing I will say is this movie, it was one of those movies where you kind of didn't want it to end. You just wanted to kind of keep the character development going.
TV series.
But I did notice that you did not show what the third mode of the gun was. Which
Well,
I was
we showed the third mode, we didn't show the second mode.
Oh.
So what he used there, we call mode 3, and that was
Okay.
like the big. So
big
mode
one.
1 is what he fires at the pool,
Yeah.
the pool table, the car, everything, every firing in the film, bar the last one, which is mode 3. Mode 2 you saw very quickly in the bathroom, which was like stun mode or something, and it puts like a taser thing on the end of it. That was mode 2. So we didn't actually see what that did. So maybe next movie. But the idea of the idea.
Kinship. That's what it's called, kinship.
Kinship. Okay, good. Thank you, brother. The idea of the weapon was just to have something that felt like it was a character in the film and was slowly peeling back layers of it as well. And so we wanted it to begin as just a box of metal on the ground, and similar to a
forces-
genie in a lamp, he runs his sort of thumb over the symbol and it kind of comes to life. Yeah, it forces you to explore, which the kid's already exploring at the beginning of the film, so it's kind of cool that he has to explore this device to see what it actually does. And just like the ring in Lord of the Rings, like they have a connection, they have some kind of odd relationship that draws him to this device, and we don't know whether it's good or evil. And to be honest, people could look at this film as pro-gun or anti-gun. You have an interpretation of both, because it actually takes him down the wrong road. Every bad decision that's made in the film is basically because of this thing. He has to let it go at the end.
All right, so there's been a lot of talk about pacing, and I agree, you guys did do a great job. But my question is, if a sequel, which I think it obviously is going to happen, like I feel like this is marketable and you guys know
confident.
it. But like my question is, are you going to be able to tell the entire rest of the story in just a sequel, or is it going to become a series in order to pay homage to that?
Are we going bigger than a sequel now?
I just feel like there's like a whole lot of story to tell, and the way you guys did it was kind of slow.
You're right.
So it's
we're not the guys that sat there and said, we've got a whole trilogy that we want to do. And I think if you're doing that, you're probably not focusing on the first film as much as you probably should be. So we worked it out, where we saw it going. But no, this was about, if they never let us make a sequel, this one stands on its own. It asks a lot of questions. It leaves you thinking on the car ride home. And I think that's all good stuff. But this is a very small sliver of this kid's life. This is the 10-day period when he found a plasma rifle from another world. Like, if we're looking at him as being a 33-year-old, this is like a tiny section of it. And if we're talking about his destiny and what he's meant to fulfill one day, whether that is the king of something or a soldier or whatever we end up, wherever we end up taking him, like Josh is saying, this is an origin story. This is just him as a 14-year-old kid that one time. Very small.
I just want to say that Quaid was a perfect actor for that character.
He was, wasn't he?
Because, and he had a big impact on those kids at the end.
He really did. And Dennis, when we talked to him, as you all know, he takes a bullet to the chest and dies in the middle of this film, in the beginning of the second act. And that's a hard thing to ask an actor to do, because they're not in an entire film. So Dennis is a big actor, and he has to come onto a movie with first-time directors and die in the movie. That's pretty aggressive to ask someone to do. Yeah, and honestly, most people would just pass. Yeah. And he said to us early on the first phone call that I know I die at the end of the first act, and I'm not actually in this movie, and I don't have the most lines in this movie, but I feel the Father's presence in the rest of this movie. Yeah, and that's important for that lead character. So Dennis got it, and I'm really glad he did. And why we cast him is because we were looking for someone that we had a personal relationship with from all of his movies. Right. Because we want you guys as the audience to feel like comfortable with him. I grew up with this guy. I know this guy. Yeah. And he's playing a harder guy. He's playing a very, salt of the earth, blue collar man. Right. But and I actually don't think we've seen that from Dennis many times before. So it was interesting to let him play that. But at the end of the day, we wanted you guys to feel comfortable, and then we shoot him in the chest.
Hey Josh, can you give the microphone to the woman with her hand up here? Yeah, Dennis Quaid was awesome in Frequency. I think that's I love watching that.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great. He's also Dennis. I gotta say, you go to dinner with Dennis, it's a fun time. He is a jokey individual, and he will rock up on set, and he was rapping with the kid in the car just before an emotional scene, and he's fun to have around.
Wow. Please, miss.
Hi, on your second sequel, are you gonna start it?
Sorry, that's the second one or the third one?
Well, are you gonna start it with how many years the older brother spent in jail?
Yeah, we'll give you a little sneak peek. So go easy. So that the film might open with Jimmy in prison, and it's down to the last 6 months of the results of this film, and we see the relationship between Eli and Jimmy, and what's going to happen next. Yeah.
Does anybody else have questions that don't involve sequel? You, sir, in the red shirt. We got a microphone coming to you. You know, for a second, I thought that Michael B. Jordan would have been Myles Truitt's character in the future.
Absolutely, a lot of people thought that, and we wanted. Thank you, lady in the red. We wanted you to be asking those questions when the helmet came up, but we'd like to think that we answered everything when the handshake happens, and he basically says, "You're looking out for your brother, well, I'm looking out for mine."
Oh, fantastic. Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, I want to ask how long did it take to actually film the movie?
Great question.
How did you come up with this original idea? Because it's so many movies, I can sit back and pull pieces of other movies out of it.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I hope that's a good thing.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's great. What was the first part of your question? How long did it take to shoot? We were lucky to have a good amount of days. On a director's first film, you generally don't get over 30, and we had 47. So we paid for days. We put money into days because we knew how important that would be. And it's a road trip film that covers a lot of ground. And we've also got a lot of, there was stunts in there, there was sci-fi elements, all that stuff takes a lot of time. So any film, whatever you have, you need more. The same goes for money. So with 47 days, we probably needed 50, but we were racing the entire time to try to get all that stuff in 47 days. Because we had a lot of locations for a road trip and we were moving around, and every day you're doing something different. But for your second question, I'll tell you just a little sneak peek that no one really knows, but Bagman, the original short film, started from an idea that we wanted to tell a story about the most obscure superhero birth on the planet. And so we wanted to set it in the Congo and have a young, let's say 13-year-old boy that had mind powers, telekinetics, something, moving things with his mind. And we went to bid this film out. We're going to shoot it in Nigeria. Short film based on this concept. And it was far too expensive and honestly a little dangerous. And we lived in New York at the time, and we just said, look, let's make it a little bit more local, so a bit more achievable for us. Let's set it in Harlem. And all of these movies were coming out with kids with telekinetic powers, and we are not the guys that jump on the train that everybody else is doing. And so, Chronicle came out, like X-Men First Class with a young Magneto moving knives with his mind. These music videos came out with kids with these powers. Stranger Things eventually came out. Like, it's just a thing, and I'm personally a little over it. So we ended up just saying, look, let's put him in New York, let's make it Harlem, we can shoot that. And let's give him, let's say, a giant sci-fi rifle, and that's where Bagman came from.
You missed the blue?
Yes, I enjoyed the movie. I didn't know whether to laugh. Well, I did laugh. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when his brother had given him the tennis shoes.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was a touching moment? Or?
Yeah, because the tennis shoes were old. His shoes, how you got showed the shoes were holey and torn.
Yep.
He had his tennis shoes on his bed, and I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, that's a moment that we've heard from a lot of people, that Jimmy actually starts to become redeemable, and up until that selfless thing, right? Yeah, up until that moment, he's looking out for himself, and that's the first moment where he actually does a big brother moment. So that was an important one to keep in for us. But then it also overlapped with him finding the framed photo that Jimmy took from the house, which also makes you think, well, he's got a heart in there somewhere because he cares about family, even though it looks like he's out for himself the entire time.
Any other questions? Anybody else want to? You, sir, with the pen?
Hey guys.
Hey man.
So you were mentioning before about like concepts that you'll like, whether you like them or not, whether you want to show them or not, you ultimately had to ask them. Is there anything you can tell us about things like you may have tried to develop, things that were like in the script, things you wanted to get in, but ultimately you had to let go?
Yeah, we've got it's got to make us look bad. We're gonna have a bunch of them. Every movie has them, and they're essentially experiments, things that you're trying and you really want to work, and they just don't. And you only realize it later when you're sitting in the edit and you've got perspective. When you're shooting it, you're just trying to shoot as much stuff as you can, and you think it matters so much, and then you get to the edit and you're like, that doesn't matter at all, or it's hurting the movie. So you take that stuff out. Yeah, I shouldn't talk about it too much, but the Carrie Coon character at the end, she's an exceptional actress. She's a really big actress that was just in a Spielberg movie and an Avengers movie. She's giant now. But when we cast her in the film, she was up and coming. This was before she was in Fargo. She was just in an HBO TV show called The Leftovers. And we had a role that was a lot bigger for her, and we shot some extra stuff of that. And she was playing an FBI agent that was kind of tracking them down, and she was hearing these rumblings of this weapon that was being used, and obviously the FBI would be very interested in that. And it just turned out, when we cut it all together, that the FBI scenes weren't exceptional. They were actually the most normal thing about the movie, the thing you'd seen in a million TV shows. And it's really hard to do something new with that. So a producer actually said, why don't you guys consider cutting that whole thread out, because it's actually making your movie more derivative, and you're taking some of the emphasis off the brothers, and we want to be in their shoes, we want to be with them, like that's who we care about. So we were cutting away from the brothers to go to the FBI, and then sitting there kind of not bored, but like, you're not telling me anything that I've never seen before. And so someone had the compliment that they didn't know where the movie was going, and I think that's a great thing. But with the FBI scenes in, you did know where it was going. It was also, if you ever have a situation where, as the audience, you know more than the character on screen, it's kind of a bit lame, especially when they're professionals like FBI agents and they should know their stuff. So, you know, we took it out and it just really zeroed it in on what the movie was about and made it feel more original, which definitely helped. That was probably the biggest example.
Anybody else? You sir in the hat?
Go, man. How loud's your voice?
Yeah.
Shout it all out. How do we decide? Look, a lot of people say, I can't imagine working with my sibling. And for us, as twins, we're not identical, but we're pretty damn close. We've been doing stuff together for so long, liking the same movies, interested in the same things. We were designers, then we stepped over into directing at a very similar time. And we were actually directing individually for a while, and it just felt a little weird and competitive. And we just thought, like, we'll be way more powerful together. So we teamed up, and from then on, we've been a directing duo. On set, we try our best not to contradict each other. That's probably the most important thing. Mostly you just look like an idiot, and there's no point doing that. So we try to give the same direction to talent. We try to talk to them at the same time. Try to make it easy on everyone. Yeah, it makes you more of an aware person, patient. We do a lot of hand signals and looking at each other, making sure we're on the same page. It's about respect. So.
Oh, I gotta ask since I have the mic. Could you please recommend a book that really inspired you, sci-fi or not, as you both grew up through this?
One sci-fi book I really loved got turned into a Netflix show just recently, and it was Junk. So that sucks. It was what was it called? Which one are you doing? Great example, Joe. Completely spacing. Well, we read more. Altered Carbon. Yeah, just recently. Altered Carbon. It was an amazing book. Really, really great tone, great humor, great sci-fi, and it just made a really boring show. We read more comics and graphic novels these days than novels, to be honest. We watch a lot of movies, but I got 2 kids. Josh has got a newbie. We don't have that much time to do much more than make a movie.
Certain classes.
I thought the performance of the main character was really great, and I was wondering, besides casting, how you got like a really good performance out of him. And also, I've noticed with Australian cinema lately, like indie cinema, the performances are really great. So what are they doing differently to make it so good? That's a
very good question about Australian cinema. I think it's because we're the underdog, and we haven't got the money that other people have, but we have really good talent. And as I'm sure you could see, pretty much every time you see an Australian actor being successful in America, they're doing a pretty good job at it. Nicole Kidman, Cate Blanchett, like Chris Hemsworth, we've got a lot of talented people coming out of Australia. There's plenty of them. I think we look at cinema a little differently over there, and I think it's similar to the way English do, but it's got its own voice. We don't get to make a lot of big movies, so you have to make the intimate stuff count. And when we do make a slightly bigger film, it usually feels maybe like where we were going with this, like character is key, and so they generally make pretty solid films. There was a film called Animal Kingdom that they made a TV show over here called Animal Kingdom. There was an Aussie film that was exceptional. There's a movie called The Proposition, which is an Australian cowboy film that was really, really good.
With Guy Pearce?
Yep. There was a film called The Rover with Robert Pattinson playing one of his best roles in film.
Again, Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce, yep. Pretty much anything with Guy Pearce. But in terms of the kid, Myles Truitt, yeah, we mentioned that's his first movie. And so coming into a zone where he's acting alongside these like super professionals, I think it was me and Josh's responsibility, or at least we took it on ourselves, to sort of teach him subtlety and less is more. And we just kept asking him to like bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. We saw him the other day in Atlanta doing pretty much what we're doing right now. It was really good to see him. He now he's 6 foot, and it looks like his older brother. Pretty much looks like an NBA player. It's ridiculous. Definitely not like that anymore. And he said the one thing you told me is less is more. He still remembers it, and hopefully he takes that forward, because that's what's rare for a lot of kid actors. There was one moment where Jack Reynor and him were playing in a scene, and a hot dog or taco truck or something came on set, which is nice. You're shooting nights, the crew wants it, they want a bit of a pick-me-up, and he was eating his taco while he was off camera performing with Jack, who was on camera, and he was kind of just like eating it and like saying his lines and whatever. And Jack kind of went off at him a little bit and just said, like, if you're gonna be here, like, at least respect what I'm doing, yeah, and do it properly. And he kind of pulled his head in for that moment and went away. We just said, look, man, you gotta respect the craft. And it was nice to see him learn on the fly, things like that, even though he got embarrassed in front of the entire crew for eating a taco while he was supposed to be acting. Yeah, he should have. He'll never do it again.
Well, before we get to you, sir, I have a question. So you talk about taking advice from people who've been there before, and you guys, this is your story.